Hello everyone, and welcome to my condensed critical mode playthrough. It has been a long time coming for me, about 3 months since my last recording, but just a week or so behind my normal video upload for this series. This has been a huge undertaking, testing all of my skills and patience, and boy did I have small doses of both at times. But it's here, so let's begin. Our journey, of course, begins as Roxas, but instead of investing in his story, I basically ignore all of that to start beating up on the other teens in my town. As a reward for that, Mysterious Forces gift me with an even more powerful item than a rubber bat, a 3-foot metal key. Can't wait to use that responsibly. Then it's skill tree time for the playthrough. Like my proud playthrough in KH1, I choose the shield to learn essential abilities like Once More and Second Chance as soon as possible. I also equipped all of the abilities you start with in Critical, except no experience, because I want to finish this series sometime this decade. I farmed up a couple levels and then took on Twilight Thorn. Even this early tutorial boss is tough. The beginning part is a scripted reaction command, but his laser attacks can be brutal and finish you off in just a few hits. I tried to hit him where I could take out some of the smaller enemies for health drops, but I still had to run away to pop a potion just to survive. Unfortunately, I was forced to do another reaction command cycle, but thankfully he landed the final blow. Get it? Because he died when he landed? Alright, moving on. Back at Twilight Town, I used my newfound powers to get defeated by Hayner. Thankfully, the tournament is absolutely rigged in my favor, and they acted like that didn't happen, so it was second try that I beat him, collecting all of the orbs. I did the same thing with Vivi without issue, but then failed several times against Axel. The downside of losing to Axel, besides the shame you feel, is having to fight Vivi and the Nobodies again to get to Axel. Thankfully though, he went down the second time. I finished the tournament by purposely losing to Setzer so I could get the medal as a prize for its strength boost. I did some more story progression until it was time to take on Axel again, this time with the power of 2 Keyblades. It's amazing how much easier this is when Roxas doesn't seem to notice the entire floor is on fire like Sora does. Do better, Sora. Roxas bravely ventured forward, only to face the hard truth that his summer vacation was over. Now, back in control of Sora, my first priority was new clothes. Oh yeah, and finding Kairi and Riku and saving the world and all that stuff, of course. With my new threads, it was time to strap my stuff in Hollow Bastion, taking out the Nobodies that told me red was not my color. Farmed up some enemies for experience, and then helped Leon in the Bailey defend a gate? Kinda interesting how this theme keeps popping up. Leon rewards me with literal fire, because what else do you give to children? And then it's time for me to take that into new lands. What could go wrong? Our crew makes its way to the Land of Dragons to help Ping prove himself as a competent soldier. Yes, let the 15-year-old hanging out with a dog and a duck be the judge of character for the troops. Nothing exciting really happens with the missions. I get a few scares with the Assault Riders, but am able to clutch it out and prove Ping can handle his own. Which leads us to venturing into a cave where we end up fighting waves of Heartless. Again, the Assault Riders are the biggest worry. They hit hard and often and can take several hits, but it was another mission accomplished. Our visit finished with a showdown against Shan Yu. I started in Valor form to give me a good strength boost and also to get some experience for it. You can block Shan Yu to begin a reaction command, which allows you to get some extra hits on him. He broke out of my combos a few times, but with the damage output critical mode provides, I was able to take him out with only a moment or two of worry. Then it was on to Beast Castle. The first battle was with the Door Guardians, who killed me in about half a second. Thankfully, it worked in my favor because it allowed me to call Mickey to save me. It's one of the trophies I needed and also gives me a second chance in the same battle. It doesn't happen in every fight, but certain ones have a higher likelihood of it happening. With the borrowed strength from the king itself, I was able to beat the door. Lesson learned so far: gated doors good, wooden doors bad. I lit torches in the secret passageway, invaded Beast's privacy so I could beat him up, and then forced him to help me fight the boss. You might notice I haven't mentioned my third party member during fights. That's because it's usually Donald and he's usually dead. Notice in this fight how he manages to come alive right as we kill the boss. That is, only to die in the next few minutes because he didn't realize there was a Phase 2. It's a Square Enix game, Donald. There's always a Phase 2. This fight was a bit more annoying because he never seems to stay in place long enough for you to do more than a hit or two, and then you have all this other stuff flying around at you. This was another fight Mickey was willing to step in and help out, and he revived me right at the end of the fight. Wait, does that make me Donald? Oh my gosh, I'm Donald. The nice thing is, I did get Cure from completing the world, which is going to be used more than any other spell. Our next stop was the Underworld, which really had me questioning if Mickey did in fact save me in the previous fight, or if I died and this was the new reality. Internal crisis aside, I had to fight Hades to find out I couldn't fight Hades, which then led to me fleeing for my literal life. Little side note on something I definitely didn't experience multiple times. If you die during the escape, you have to make your way all the way back up to Hades, work through the cutscene to discover he's invulnerable, and then try your luck again fleeing. I think I finally got it third try, but holy buckets, his fireball aim should not be that good. You know it's rough when fighting Cerberus is less anxiety-inducing than running away from Hades. This one was easy because I was really just biding my time until I could call Mickey. He makes this fight way better. You just get Cerberus quickly down to one hit, and then charge up Mickey's drive gauge to revive Sora. Once back, cast a quick blizzard, and he's finished. It looks way better in the speedruns, but it's a super cool strat. The next obstacle in my way was Demyx. I danced around with his water clones for a bit, and then hit him like 3 times, and he was completely over it. This then took me to a fight against Pete. Phase 1 is the normal protect Meg, don't die strategy. Phase 2 is still don't die, but also take out Pete. As long as you're prepared to deflect the orbs back at him and attack when you have an opening, he's very easy. I used Valor for added damage and form experience to speed things up as well. The last part of our visit here was to take on the Hydra. The first struggle was landing hits on him. The second struggle was I could not get on the Hydra's back. It didn't seem to matter what angle I was at, I could not get the prompt for it. I slaughtered at least 10 Hydra heads before I was finally able to awkwardly jump on its back, and even after doing that, I still had almost all of its HP left to contend with. I finally got far enough into the fight to utilize the Pegasus reaction command, and then just stupidly ran around the arena waiting for the prompt to kill it off. Super sloppy, but in all things considered, another world done. I went to Disney Castle next and used Minnie's escort mission to gain some experience. I knew crit mode would be a struggle, but I was feeling extremely underleveled and overpowered by all the enemies. After running back and forth between Hollow Bastion and Disney Castle for story purposes, Merlin finally gave the okay to enter the door, which took us back to the future. Past. Days of Future Past? I'm losing track here. Anyway, I approached Pete, who thought he could throw us off the scent by changing clothes, and we beat him up because of it. Nothing like attacking innocent bystanders just because we have a Keyblade. If that's not heroism, I don't know what is. Once I finished making him cry, it was time to learn more about Pete's villain arc, which I'm sure is in no way related to the events that just took place. To do so, I had to inspect the 4 different scenes, and the little window scenes were absolutely brutal, especially the fire one. I died probably 8 times. Those cars suck in every playthrough, no matter the difficulty. Thankfully, I saw a strat that recommended using Chicken Little, and he was a godsend. He can call enemies over and stun them when he does, making things much, much easier. The only thing that was left to do was to stop Pete from escaping. I shifted into Valor and deflected furniture back at him. I don't want your stinking hand-me-downs. I unfortunately didn't get the reaction command in time for a 1-cycle fight, which was a bit disappointing. So I was stuck biding my time until I could grab on again and finish things off. I also completely forgot that I had to fight Pete again, this time with other Pete by my side. Honestly, I'll skip to the good part. After taking care of things in Timeless River, I opened the door to Port Royal, but decided to do some farming. I was again tired of being underleveled and dying to pretty much a sneeze from a Heartless. I didn't do too much, just got to level 20 so I could learn Leaf Bracer and be on pace for the next area. Back to Port Royal, I noticed things were a bit off, which means I need to insert myself into other people's business like usual and see what's going on. I found pirates I couldn't damage, but thankfully Pete was nice enough to tell me their weakness, which I then used to beat them up. No remorse here exploiting weak spots, which, if you could see a total death count at the end of this playthrough, you'd know why. In the spirit of overkill, I used Valor Form to take on a group of weak Heartless. I would have felt bad, but Will immediately validated me, so that's that. I agreed to help him find Elizabeth and then jump on a boat with someone I've only known for 5 minutes. I'm sure it'll be fine. On the Interceptor, I save and also purchase a Victory Bell staff for Donald. I don't typically buy a lot of equipment in playthroughs, but me and my party need all the stat boosts we can get. I, completely by myself, rescued Elizabeth and then had to fend off some pirates for 1 minute while we waited for the ship. This was another great time to get some more XP while I could. I used Blizzard and reaction commands to take out as many as possible. A pirate got in a critical hit on me and killed me right at the very end of the ambush, which I was not happy about. I should be desensitized to dying in this playthrough, but I'm not. I get irritated almost every time. Especially because the bosses seem to be easier to me than the regular enemies in a world. But I digress. I readied Valor for the Barbossa fight and then wasted time running around like a dum-dum trying to find the Heartless making it dark. Once I was able to find it, the actual fight only took about 30 seconds. Valor Form took almost all of his health away and I was able to land the last few hits. Agrabah welcomed me with love and affection, which scared me enough to buy an Aegis chain for 500 money. Even if it's just a little bit more defense for me, it was absolutely worth it. My Cave of Wonders visit was way less stressful than in my KH1 Proud mode playthrough, which is something to celebrate. I did so by buying another chain and giving it to Donald. Maybe it will give him the incentive to live long enough to heal me. Of course, I don't give him a chance because it's Goofy and Aladdin joining me to fight Twinrova at the palace gates. I focused on taking out the fire one first and then moved to the Blizzard guy. Again, this was another boss fight that was no struggle for me. My combos do great damage, and I didn't have to focus on defense and healing like the other fights. Now it was time to go to Halloween Town. Jack and I took out the enemies in town and made our way to the Hinterlands. I decided once again to buy more items and got an Aquamarine ring for increased strength and AP, and a Platinum ring for increased magic and AP. I equipped the Aquamarine to Sora, gave Goofy Sora's medal, and then gave the Platinum ring to Donald. I won't mention how I died within the 10 steps it takes to get to Sandy Claus, and I certainly won't show footage of it happening either. With a completely deathless walk to see Santa, we find out our completely deathless walk was useless, and now we need to follow the footsteps back to Halloween Town to fight whatever that thing is. Like a lot of monsters in this series, sometimes the worst part is reaching the boss to actually do the damage and engage in the fight. Also, a concerning, reoccurring theme of children being eaten by monsters for power boosts. Yeah, we gotta put a stop to that. And so we do! With a minor pit stop to hit an important milestone, level 25, which gives me the Once More ability. With the children saved, Oogie is our next opponent. In case I'd forgotten I was on critical mode, that punching thing pretty much takes half my health in one go. And you would have thought it was my intent to get hit by it as often as possible the way I go about this fight. It's similar to his KH1 fight. There's dumb obstacles and enemies to work against, and you can only do so much damage to him per phase. I also had a few times where I think the game glitched because Oogie would be stunned on the conveyor belt, but he wouldn't take any more damage, and even if I left him alone, he kinda just stayed there. Probably a me thing, but it was weird. Also, I took a punch right to the face and died, so that was fun. But second try, I was able to finish him off. I thought I could go to Twilight Town to progress the story and hopefully skip a few worlds, but I kept getting wrecked by the Berserkers, so I made the decision to go to the Pride Lands. Honestly, as much as I was ready to finish the playthrough, I'm glad I took the time to get more levels and upgrade spells and equipment by completing the remaining areas. We battled our way to Pride Rock to find out we could have just taken a right turn from the graveyard to get to our next area to find Simba. At the Oasis, I bought a new shield for Goofy and synthesized a power band. I got a few boost items from the Moogle for turning in different synth items, so I used all of those to increase some stats. With Simba by our side, we returned to Pride Rock, successfully protecting Timon and Pumbaa from the hyenas, and then challenged Scar. I tried to stay close to him and use Reflect, and that helped in doing some good damage in addition to my normal combos. Donald was a healing maniac this battle. Apparently all he wanted was some better equipment, and he heard the call to arms. Despite that, however, on 1 hecking HP, Scar went into his DM and then stayed invincible for a good 10 seconds after it, and still managed to get off several more hits on us before I could take him out. Gotta admire that spirit though. Now that Pride Lands was done, I was a bit more leveled up to tackle the Berserkers in Twilight Town. My pit stop netted me the Oathkeeper Keyblade and Limit Form. Totally worth it. Since I had finished the other stories, I headed to Hollow Bastion to start the Tron storyline. Of course, progression comes second to talking to Aerith, so I made time to do just that. She does have a way with words. Inside the computer, I found myself once again fighting a door because having a giant key that seals world keyholes somehow doesn't mean I can open a regular door. I rode a light cycle half dead to get further into the computer where I did the cluster minigame. Thankfully this time without completely losing track of time. I grabbed the Gaia belt in a new room for added defense and then took on the MCU's program. This time I had a bit more patience with gathering the clusters so I could freeze them in place instead of chasing them around the room trying to do damage. I also accidentally used Tron's Limit, which, although it looks neat, really didn't do much. I had a good cycle of freezing him and collecting more clusters off of him while he was stunned to keep him in a bit of a loop. His lasers were more of a source of entertainment than an actual threat, so with a few more combos, we took it down. We weren't able to relax long, however. Back in town, Demyx was causing trouble. The dancing shoes came back on, but I learned they are not waterproof when you take a full tidal wave to the face. Not sure why I was set on trying to block all his water attacks, but whatever I did worked. A for effort. The chaos in town continued, but thankfully I had help from some great friends, who were conveniently nowhere to found when it came to battling 1,000 Heartless. Oh, and Goofy died. But back to the Heartless. I thought about trying to level grind with low health, but really didn't feel like testing my luck. Once the Heartless were defeated, I swung by to get the Gullwing Keyblade for the experience boost ability. Thus begins our world revisits, starting with Land of Dragons. I battled Not Riku in front of a sellout crowd, and then fought my way to the Emperor. After robbing him while Shen watched, I realized just how low I was on potions. Oh Moogle! I also realized I had to re-equip all of Goofy's abilities, which is dumb. Oh, yeah, Goofy's not dead. After stocking up on supplies and buying Not Dead Goofy a book, it's back to the palace to take on a dragon. You know, as one does normally. I start by attacking the horn things by his wings, and as you can imagine, he's not too fond of that. Then, in an impressive show of skill, I landed exactly where I hoped but never expected, and got in several more rounds of damage. With him brought down to the ground, Mulan and I used her limit to take down even more health. Once we got him down to a little under 2 bars, he went into his barrier attack, which honestly just made him stationary and therefore easier to hit. I had another 10 out of 10 landing on his back, but that was not as successful as the last one, but it did bring him down enough to deliver the killing blow. All too soon, I returned to Beast Castle. Before even considering taking on Xaldin, I wanted to do a bit more grinding. Not only for overall experience, but I wanted to level up Valor and get Master Form to level 2 for the double jump ability. I ended up moving to Land of Dragons for Master Form because I knew the rockets in the different areas would give me the Drive Orbs to level up quicker. With double jump secured, I picked up the very strong Rumbling Rose from Beast, and it was time to take on Xaldin. I started out baiting his attack so I could double jump and learn his jump ability. Thankfully, those jumps took out over half his health. I was then able to learn more jumps and take him out without ever initiating his DM. I'm pretty sure I cried when it was over because of how well that fight went. My next stop was Port Royal. I fought the Grim Reaper on the boat, which is supposed to be an easy fight. Blizzard works great on him, and thankfully at this point he's not invulnerable in the shadows like other enemies in this world. Once he was taken care of, it was time to hunt down the medallions and return them to the chest, only to have a rematch with the Grim Reaper. The early parts of this fight use Blizzard and 2 Thunders to knock his medallions loose. I get all of them off of him, but it takes me a bit too long to realize there are still some not in the chest. Then, the next struggle was getting in close enough for the reaction command to stop him from emptying the chest. After that, it's the rinse and repeat of getting all of the medallions, putting them in the chest to make him vulnerable, and attacking him with all my might. I do put myself in a spot where I use all my magic and have to slowly watch it come back, which makes it harder to get his medallions. Donald and Jack also die a lot, so they aren't any help with hitting him with more magic. All in all, it was a longer fight than it should have been, but I finished him off with a sick comment limit with Donald. Agrabah was our next destination. I went on a magic carpet ride after Jafar's shadow, only to learn Iago had purposely stalled me. It didn't really matter much since Jafar was calmly waiting at the castle gates. I appreciate that he didn't immediately turn into a genie and start wreaking havoc in Agrabah. Says a lot about him. Of course, I'm still going to have to attack his impressively strong core in retaliation, but it'll be a bit reluctantly. This is another fight that the main difficulty is just the time-wasting mechanics where you have to dodge debris and then make your way back to his torso. I do the reaction command a few times to stun him and unleash a few more combos to finish him off. Then I was at the Hinterlands, beating up the kids I saved just a bit earlier. Sandy Claus sure does take that naughty list seriously. I hunted down stolen presents, which were then used to lure the thief, which was actually a really tough boss fight. To be fair, I even struggled in my normal playthrough with this boss. His laser attacks are pretty strong, and even though I was doing some decent damage with Reflect, when he separates his body parts, he starts doing the most. I died several times at various points in the fight. What ended up helping was using the kick spring reaction command to connect his parts back up, which made it so he wasn't attacking from all sides. I also got in a well-timed cure, which helped me survive enough to take him down. I was rewarded with the Decisive Pumpkin, which is another awesome Keyblade. I took this new weapon and traveled to the Pride Lands. Anytime I visit an area, of course the first thing to do is attack the locals. This time it happened to be the hyenas. Felt more like hide and seek with a bit of violent tag thrown in, to be honest though. But with them out of the way, Simba and I could take on the Ground Shaker. I leapt around its smashing feet and was able to knock him over. I got on his back for only a few seconds to attack the monkey shaman thing, but promptly got knocked back to the ground. Simba figured I had things under control, so he took a brief nap as I battled through earthquakes and fires, trying to take down the boss. Unfortunately, Simba's trust was heavily misplaced and I got trampled. Round 2 went better though, and after beating up its face again, I was able to get back on top to attack the monkey and win the fight. I realized I still had an unknown trophy missing and discovered I could get it when I hit 5,000 points in a skateboarding minigame. The best place to do this is in Santa's workshop, so I went back to Halloween Town and spammed the method grab action over and over until I had enough points. The camera was a bit annoying, but after a few tries, I got the Pro Skater trophy. Deciding I need some extra levels and other benefits from doing more story quests, I completed the second part of Olympus Coliseum and then headed to Hollow Bastion to help Tron again. We valiantly fought Heartless on the Solar Sailor, which earned me the Explosion ability, which you know is one of my favorites. I also got the Cosmic Arts accessory, which gives me higher strength, magic, and AP. With that equipped, it was time to fight Sarg. tried to loft his frisbee at me, but I was too quick. His next idea was to maximize, which just meant I had a bigger target to hit. I took out the fortress protecting the core, only to realize Tron was dead, so I couldn't use the reaction command yet. And, irritatingly enough, it happened several more times, which gave the program time to reload his barrier, and gave Sark enough time to come back. And he was only too happy to launch his frisbee at me and kill me. Round 2, Tron was a little bit more proactive at staying alive, and we were able to finally shut down the MCP. Next, I swung by Agrabah to level up Limit Form to unlock Dodge Roll for my upcoming battle. Then I headed to Twilight Town to fight the Nobodies with Axel, whose noble sacrifice made it possible to get to the world that never was to hunt down the other Nobodies and save Kairi. But first, it was a matchup against Roxas, and there was no cheesing him this time. It took me lots of tries, some better than others. I watched a video that recommended equipping Auto Limit Form to use in a pinch, which is a suggestion that greatly benefited me. Not only for the free heal, but the boosted dodge roll helped me avoid his more powerful attacks. I finally got in some good blocks and lucky dodges and heals, and with a strong Limit Form finisher and a few more combos, I was the surviving champ. My next opponent was Xigbar. First try went okay for a bit, but I tried to go into Limit Form for a free heal, but instead went in Anti-Form, which is basically a death sentence. Attempt 2 was better. I utilized double jump for the usual iframes, and also to help close the distance on him. In the moments when he really limits the area, once more stepped up big. I had another round where he hit up at the top and shot at me, but as soon as he came back, it was instant punishment. I then took advantage of the Keyblade Roxas gave me and brute forced Final Form. I wanted the glide ability, but this would also give me a chance to level grind a bit using the same strategy as in my regular playthrough. Take advantage of Final Form Faraga while at low health, with the Gullwing Keyblade and experience boost equipped for 4 times the EXP. In lieu of spending an insane amount of time over leveling, I got to level 50, learning the crucial Once More ability. After completing that, it was time to take on Luxord. He did take me down the first time because I got trapped in dice and card forms a few times, but the second time I was able to take him on. I failed his final card game because I was not expected to be thrown right into the minigame at the end, but once I returned back to normal, I was able to finish him off a few moments later. Seems luck wasn't on his side. Next was Saix. His Berserk mode can cause some issues, but in a way better form than when I fought his Data version, I focused on grabbing his weapon when he was in Berserk mode to knock him out of it. I attacked him with lots of strong combos, feeling extremely grateful for the Once More and Second Chance abilities, and dare I say, even Donald brought some clutch heals. Riku was nice enough to join our team, only to immediately leave me to take on Xemnas on my own. Typical. At the start of the battle, I waited until the finish reaction command popped up so I could skip right to bringing him to the ground. I let loose a string of combos which helped take out a chunk of his health. Then it was a series of mistimed blocks, reflex that did absolutely nothing, and taking hard hits from his definitely not lightsabers. It felt like every time I'd get close to do damage, he'd teleport away, which really is smart on his part. I did put up a few well-timed blocks that looked awesome, but most of the battle was dodging and healing. I got to the final Skyscraper Showdown and took him down. Now was the annoying sequence of slicing buildings in one hit, with a Keyblade that seems to take hundreds of hits on actual people, so we'll ignore that logic for now. And then rinse and repeat killing a few enemies and dodging an exploding core for reasons I probably should know after beating this game about 5 times in the last few months. Continuing my building destruction, it was time to take on a wall and any other structural support objects I can find. If Heartless Sling ever dies out, at least I can fall back on construction. Then onto beating a dude in a chair who, to no one's surprise, did not put up much of a fight. You know, outside of saving the world context, this would be pretty awful. Once we beat a harmless person for having the audacity to sit down, Riku and I took on a dragon building thing. Even though this was more tedious than difficult, I gotta say, the longer it went, the more worried I got that I was going to die on this stupid segment. Thankfully, Riku chartered my half-dead body into the next phase of the fight and dumped me in front of the same chair guy who definitely had no plans of revenge. The first half of the fight was me remembering to come back down to the same zip code as the boss. The second half was stressing that I was going to die to the snowflake lasers that locked me in an awful corner where I couldn't do anything. A few more building surfs and snowflake lasers, and I finally made my way back to the arena. Only to see Riku just casually hanging out with his literal back to the boss. All so he could immediately run straight for the lasers when I did so. Thankfully, our carefully crafted distraction plan worked, and while Riku was taking on absolutely unhealthy amounts of radiation, I was able to take the boss down. And now it was final Xemnas time. This was a fight where I did not sit down until I saw the ending cutscene start. It starts with the normal reaction command spam until he settles enough to do a safety heal. I can thankfully take a few hits at this point, but I was still nervous anytime I took damage. I focused on my usual late game strategy of reflecting, dodging, hitting it with combos, and healing whenever I could. I tried to be a bit more defensive by dodging and keeping my distance as needed, having a reflect ready just in case. Master Form's double jump ability was also helpful in giving me iframes to dodge his lasers, but there were still a few moments it got close. Then it was at the part I was most nervous for, controlling Riku. After my numerous failed attempts in the data battle, I knew to abuse the Dark Aura attack anytime Xemnas started to close in. This allowed me to close in on Sora safely and quickly move the fight to the final phase. Now, it was just button mashing like I was a speedrunner about the world record. At least 20 full minutes later, it was time to deliver the final few blows. Xemnas was defeated, and in typical Kingdom Hearts fashion, you don't get the relief of seeing the trophies until you've sat through an entire full-length credit sequence. And so I did, where I got the last few trophies. Critical Competitor, Proud Player, and Kingdom Hearts 2 Master. And, in a sigh of relief and slight disappointment, the battle report did not, in fact, show my total deaths. Probably was too high for it to quantify, but just know it was a lot. Also, somewhere I have a little 2-minute video where it shows where I got the Synthesis trophy, but obviously with getting the Master trophy, you know I got them all, so you'll just have to take my word for it. Anyway, that ends the video and the Platinum playthrough for KH2.5. Thank you all for sticking around and all the likes and comments and subscriptions. They are all so generous and very much appreciated.